So, a sincere allegiance to now, sincere allegiance to this moment, to be so fully here now. Here now, there is nothing here but the being itself. To be here now is to be so fully present that no story, no world can arise, because presence is so present to itself. So fully here now. When you feel yourself here now, you can feel existence itself. And when existence itself is here knowingly, consciously, knowing itself, then world does not appear, because world only appears when mind gives rise to it. And mind only starts running like an engine when the I thought identifies at a singular point. The I is who I am, says the mind, and then the story starts running and world appears. World is only the appearance of your mind. It's like an emptying of your mind onto a screen. As it empties onto the screen, it is only there for you. You are not a victim of it. You are not a victim of your mind. So do not try to run from your own mind. Meet it. Meet it so bravely, so courageously, so openly. Have the humility to see the contents of your own mind emptied, splurged out on a screen. You see, to judge the appearance is to judge yourself. Everything is only appearing the way it does in order to reflect back to you the parts of yourself that you cannot see. But it is not even to get wrapped up and focused upon that game, that game of seeing yourself. That is going to happen anyway. The true focus is to know yourself, so that world does not appear, so that splurge of your mental realm does not need to empty itself and create appearance. When you are resting in this moment, in utter allegiance, simple allegiance to the now, when you are so fully present to your own presence, it's all that is here. There is no story. There is nothing other. The self stands alone. Stands alone, the oneness, but not a oneness that gives a sense that there's something other than the oneness. It's not the oneness or the two-ness. The oneness is one only, one with no other, one with no second. The one that is standing alone is the true I. And when you feel the felt sense of existence, and the sense of I does not identify with the body and with the mind and the story, then the sense of I can remember its boundlessness. The sense of I, existence, can remember its boundless, infinite, eternal nature. The sense of I can remember its beingness. As these words come, it is just to feel the resonance, not to try to understand or work it out, but just to feel what is being pointed to. What is being pointed to is a simple, direct remembering of what the I really is, and an invitation to meet yourself in the oneness of now, the presence of being that is now. To be here now, so fully here now, not as a doing, not as an activity, but underneath the moving, changing play, underneath the comings and goings of thoughts and feelings and sensations, underneath all of that dances on the surface as life, there is this deep, eternal truth that is the truth of who you are. This deep, eternal truth that is boundless. It is existence itself. And it is just to come to the felt sense of existence without understanding, without knowing. There is such a surrender to just be here, to be here so fully, without knowing, without understanding, and to meet yourself unguarded, unfiltered, to meet yourself unedited, uninhibited, to meet yourself as you are in the rawest, immaculate, pure innocence of just being. Being who you have always been. Being the grace that you have always been. Even to feel for a nanosecond the depth of your own presence. To feel the depth of your own presence for a nanosecond. You fall through the cracks between the words, between the stories, between the breaths, between everything. To feel the depth of your own presence plunges you right into the silence, the stillness, the unmoving essential nature of your essence self. Your essence self is the essence self, the self that stands alone just as it is, just here now, only knowing itself, and the knowing of the self, of itself, let's say awareness, simply aware of itself. Awareness can only be aware of itself, confirming itself right here, now. You see, you cannot find this truth in the play of the world. You cannot find, however much you can search. All you can find is a moment of presence, right? In the play of your life, you can find the gift of a moment of presence deep enough that there is a stop and you actually meet yourself. You meet the silence, you meet your own presence. And in the meeting of your own presence, the true and deep questions start to be asked. Who am I beyond this story? Who am I beyond the moving, changing? What is this life? You see, these questions start spinning in the mind because you have already met yourself. You have already been given the gift, the grace of touching into the depth of the now between the things. And then you see there's a coming back to the surface and then a scrambling around in things, trying to find that again, trying to find the answer. And yet there is not an understanding of that taste that you have tasted. You have tasted God, but you cannot assimilate that. You have tasted yourself, but you cannot assimilate it. So the mind attempts to make sense, and the mind starts searching in the world to taste that again, to live that, to know that. But the world constantly disappoints, and everything that seems like a possible path will lead to disappointment because we cannot find this truth in things. We cannot find this truth in things. Let us say all things, all stories are only here to be seen through. And the trickiest stories to see through are the spiritual ones, the ones that the mind likes to cling to, the ones that the mind likes to think are the holy ones, the sacred ones. But all stories are just story, and all stories are only here to be seen through. We could say when we come to very spiritual stories, we are close, and yet the curtain can be very thick because the wanting to stay attached to a spiritual story can have even more pull, even more stickiness, right? Because the mind can say, well, this must be it. I must be close. I must be here. But it is freedom even from the spiritual stories, even from the spiritual stories that is required to bring us to the deep knowing where there is no story. There is no story of who you are. There is no story of a journey. There is no story of a path, no story even of teachings. As the Buddha pointed out for us so kindly, even the Dharma is empty, right? The teachings lead us. The teachings are breadcrumbs, but at some point in your true nature, you have to also devour the teachings in order to set yourself free. You have to devour all that you can perceive in order to set yourself fully free and stand alone, right? The greatest fear of the mind, to stand alone. And yet your true nature is to stand alone. And only when you stand fully alone do you find that there is actually no fear in true aloneness, because true aloneness is being the one. And when you are the one that is all. And so you are actually not alone, ever. You cannot get away from yourself, no matter how hard you try. It is not an aloneness that makes you into a hermit or a recluse, although this might come too, because you cannot get away from anything, nor would you want to, because when you know the oneness that just is, the oneness that you know yourself to be is the self, the one that is God, the one that is truth, the one that is the divine reality. You see, because there is no one knowing their self, it is just that which is knowing itself. There is no separation, no division, no fragmentation. There is no one here to be alone, no one here to stand alone, all alone, quivering, shaking, feeling separate. You see, that is our great fear of aloneness, is the fear of being separated, divided. But we have lived that all of our lives. And the glory is that true aloneness, to stand alone, is to belong. Belong to yourself. Belong all the way through. Belong so fully that you recognize can never ever be away from yourself. You see, the fear of aloneness is the felt sense, the isolated sense of being separate and divided. You see? So then through this process of unfolding into your magnificence, the mind says, do not take the spiritual path. You're going to end up alone and miserable, sitting in the house by yourself. You're going to have no friends. None of those worldly activities are going to be there for you anymore. Do not take the spiritual path. It will spoil the world for you. It will spoil the world for you, but it will set you free in the world. It will set you free in the world. But let us say that in the process of being set free in the world, we have to meet, courageously meet all of our fears. It's like once we find the inner path, once we perceive through our opening, through our maturing, our ripening, we come to this point where we recognize that the only way is to turn inward, that the way is to turn inward. And there's a recognition that the pull, the longing of the heart is calling you inward. And in this recognition, there's an aliveness that comes when subtle perception reveals the inner path. Subtle perception reveals the path to God is inside. And it is at once a glorious illumination of being able to perceive the path, the incredible path inward, realizing that you could not see the inner path until there was a readiness, or let's say until there is a readiness to perceive. But all at once, you see the inner path and the light, the illumination of the way. You feel the openness, you feel the shining glory of the being, and you feel the approach of grace. Simultaneously, the mind starts roaring. Do not go there. Do not step into the light. Right? So you've got the glory of the illuminated path, the way to God, the way to God. You can feel it as the light in your heart, can feel it as a kind of expansion and a knowing that this is the only way. But as you feel the illumination and the aliveness, everything that you have built my life on starts to collapse. And the me starts saying, no, 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 don't let it collapse. Sometimes you just find that you're already plonked right in the middle of the light. And oh, where did my life go? You suddenly recognize that everything is changing, everything is rearranging, and you can see only the light. And there's no other option. You are being pulled as if by a huge magnet. The divine magnet is pulling you, sucking you in like a divine vacuum cleaner. It's just pulling you. It's pulling you. And as it's sucking you towards the deepest value of yourself, it's purifying and it's shaking off everything that you thought that you were. It's shaking it off. And as these chunky pieces of your so-called life start falling away, it feels uncomfortable to the me. And the me says even more loudly, no, no, are you not listening? Are you not listening? But your deepest heart says, I've got no choice. I've said yes. I've taken the divine pill, right? You've swallowed it. You've swallowed it all the way down. It's landed. You've said yes to God. You've said yes to God. And you realize, oh God, there's no going back. There's no going back. And you can feel the glory of that. And you can also feel the quaking as life will never look the same again. Because you are seeing from a different perspective. You are seeing from a broader perspective, right? And there's such a gorgeousness. There's such a gorgeousness to it. You can feel the openness, can feel the beauty. And simultaneously, the mind will keep trying to come in and reclaim its territory, keep itself alive. It will pull everything out of the bag, right? It will get right down to the bottom of the bag, and you can't even imagine that it could even find any more strategies. But oh my goodness, it's found a secret compartment, and there's more, and there's more, and there's more. You know, it puts its arm around you. It pretends it's your friend, right? It totally tries to buddy up with you. It tells you it's the spiritual authority, that it's got you covered. It's got you covered. We're going there together. We're going to have fun. Before you know it, you're over there. You're over there, and you fell in. You fell in. It's all part of the divine unfolding. It's refinement. It's the process of refining into the deeper and deeper values of knowing yourself. The first taste is what brings you. It brings you into alignment. The first taste, recognition of the being, where you can confirm and know inside who I am is not the person. Who I am is not limited to the person. And depending how deep this taste is, it will carry you into the vast, infinite spaciousness of your own consciousness. This is a unique unfolding. It's a unique unfolding. It is an inner process. Let's say it's between you and God until you recognize there is only God, where you dissolve into God. You dissolve into the self. It's between you and yourself to find yourself within yourself. There is grace. There is grace in this unfolding. As we come to open, we are offered guides. We are offered companions in this unfolding. And this is grace. We are offered companionship and guidance and support in various ways. We could say all of life is guiding us in truth. And yet we are given certain clear seeings and certain reflections of our nature that are markers that can carry us closer and closer and closer. Yes, essentially, it's a unique unfolding within. But we are given support, we are given guidance, we are given companionship. We are given companionship of, let's say, the true friend, the true companion, which is yourself. It's where you can see yourself, where you see a reflection of yourself that supports the remembering. silence, offering silent companionship. So as we come to know this truth and be pulled to this truth, how we are perceiving it is very unique. You're feeling your own consciousness, your own nervous system. To start with, it feels like it has an individuality, and then it lets go into its vastness. And then the subtle perceiving of your own consciousness, it will seem sometimes to flow with a flavor of individuality, and sometimes it will feel so vast and so clear. Sometimes it will seem a little foggy, right? It's really just consciousness flowing within itself in order to know itself, to experience itself, and to know itself through experiencing itself. As it experiences itself, we could say its purest value shines upon itself. Awareness shines upon the discordant patterns and illuminates them. And as it illuminates the patterns that are coming and going, ebbing and flowing, it seems to free and untangle those patterns, purify those patterns, so that the quality of reflection starts to become stiller and stiller and stiller. And it's those patterns, the moving, changing patterns, that create the appearance of the world. But as we do not identify with them, as we can move in the world, let's say as a karma yogi in selfless service, we can live the life without any attachment. We can live the life, let life live itself, we could say, without any attachment, without trying to control. This selfless service, just allowing life to live itself. We unravel these patterns, we shine the light upon the patterns. We shine the light and we meet resistances. And we unravel the patterns. When we meet resistance, when we meet triggers or charge in the nervous system, we're just meeting a place where there is karmic energy, where then the mind will often step in to try to control, will try to use free will to make something different happen, make something happen that's a little more comfortable for me. But our true karma yoga is to say, okay, to keep open, to stay open, and keep receiving and receiving and receiving. And this is how our true karma yoga clears the karma, it clears the vasanas, it clears the field, purifies the mind, opens the heart. And the more the mind is purified and the heart is open, the more we can subtly perceive our true nature, the more we can recognize the true being we are. And it takes this dispassion in order to recognize the self that we are, to discover the self that is true, is within, is right here, has always been here, underneath the play of the world. So you see this humility that it takes to be a karma yogi in life, to be living life as a selfless service, to surrender the life to the divine purpose, to surrender life and not be attempting to impose my will upon God's already perfect will. So as these words come, the mind will try to understand, and it will be able to understand to a certain extent. But deeper than that, feel the aliveness of the resonance. Feel where there's recognition. Because where there is recognition, you are recognizing the wisdom, right? Wisdom is different to mental knowledge. Wisdom is truth. Wisdom is the field of intelligence, and wisdom opens to the mechanics of consciousness, the mechanics, the workings of the consciousness that you are. And as you open to the intelligence that is this field of intelligence that is moving everything, there is an even deeper settling into yourself, a refinement into a more subtle perceiving of yourself. And it's this subtle perceiving of yourself that allows, let's say, even a deeper surrender, a deeper devotion. It's supporting itself. Everything is set up in the intelligence, in the wisdom, to support itself. Of course, there's only one here. So as these words come, they are pointing to what you already are. They are pointing to the wisdom that already is. And the pointing has the possibility of bringing a clearer seeing, giving a more unobstructed access. It's saying, take a look over here. See who you are. Take a look. See this. And then instead of looking over here, churning around in the mind, and whatever the monkey mind got excited about this morning before satsang, the pointing says, take a look. And suddenly, oh, that doesn't matter anymore. And there's the seeing of a different view. There's a seeing, a clear seeing of the wisdom of your own inner workings. And a recognition in the resonance that it's not a mental knowledge, that there's an aliveness that comes, a recognition that comes, because it's cognizing the ritam, it's cognizing the field. It's bringing forward the wisdom, and the recognition is bringing an aliveness to the wisdom. It's not bringing it alive in the mental realm. It's bringing it alive as pure truth. It's bringing it alive as your true body, your true cosmic body is the unified field. It's bringing it alive, recognizing as remembering. And as this comes alive, this remembering, the mental realm just collapses in prostration momentarily into the wisdom. Because it's pure power, it's pure aliveness. It's all that is longed for, it's all that's wanted. So where there's true recognition, it just takes over. It just takes over. And this is who you are, and this is all that is, right? So then we are back to where we started, that suddenly you are present, so present in this moment that there's nothing else. There is nothing else. It's not a doing, it's not an effort. It's so clear that there is nothing else. There is no story, there is no world, not unless the mind creates it. And then the grace is, from here, can see the mechanics of that, can see, wow, if thought doesn't get going, if the engine of me doesn't identify at the point of the body and take hold of the thoughts as mine and create mind, then world does not appear. And yet there could be this deep curiosity that says, but my eyes are open and I see an environment. Is that not the world? In a way, yes. It's the world with no story. When we use the word world, we're speaking of the illusion of separation that the mind creates, like my world. So when you are seeing this appearance, we could also call world, you're seeing the divine Leela, right? There's a difference. So there's a difference between the illusion, where you're completely stuck in separation, and the divine Leela, the divine play. So this is where everything is God, but that knowing might not have landed fully yet. And that's okay, it's in process. But when you know yourself and you are rooted, anchored in the true knowing of yourself, yes, there's still an appearance. This is actually where true karma yoga can really start to happen, because you know yourself, you're rooted in the true nature. So now there can be a moving, and your life living itself, but you feel like life living itself at a point. You can know here that you are the point and its infinity simultaneously, right? So when you are the point, you're also infinite. When you are infinite, the point is one of the infinite points. Divinity, humanity. Divinity, humanity. Your humanness is a divine expression, but you never ever lose sight of your wholeness. You never lose sight of the true being that you are. So you can feel that you are the being, you are life living itself, you are the self. There is a degree of remembering. And yet these patterns in the field, they will catch you and pull you into identification in order to refine, in order to know yourself. It's not personal. It is consciousness experiencing itself and coming to know itself through the process of experiencing itself. This is the gorgeous profundity. It's totally impersonal. All karma is completely impersonal. So these patterns, that when they're taken personally, they're taken as karmic energetics. When they're impersonal, they're just flows of consciousness experiencing itself that are just coming in. It's like a game, just coming in to live out certain things, just have to live out certain things. But when there can be a meeting and a receiving as the open field, recognizing the impersonal nature, every time you meet something that the me wants to resist, when you meet it with as little resistance as possible and as much dispassion has been cultivated, then these flows and these patterns that can create identification and tangle, they start to untangle. They loosen their grip. They loosen the grip. You never lose the footing, the rooting anchor of yourself, the being that you are. And yet this process of refinement continues to move and flow as the appearance, as the divine Leela, as God's play, as God dancing with God, in God, as God. It's all there is, right? So again, here we're illuminating what is happening here. We're deep in the field of consciousness, just expressing and illuminating. What is speaking and what is listening is the same, right? The voice is your guide. It's your inner guide. It's your inner wisdom. It's your own heart guiding you, revealing, pointing, sharing this one landscape of consciousness where there is only one. Revealing this is what is here. And where there is clear seeing, it lands. Cannot look for it with the mind and try to understand. Can only feel the resonance, can only recognize in the subtle perception of yourself. And so you can see here that it does not matter how life lives itself on the surface, what you have to live through as a point value of the infinite field, as the human expression of the divine. When you know there is no separation and you have seen through the illusion, you know this is just all a dream. You know there is only love and there is only God. You know this on some deep level, even though you could say, well, I don't always know it, or how it feels like there's a greater knowing. Fair enough. But to actually rest in your knowing, to the depth of that knowing, is where you can drink the nectar of your own knowing. Because this is where the mind could come in as a companion spiritual authority and start to try to pull the attention away. But the authority, the true authority, is your knowing, is the felt sense of being. The true authority is being here, feeling the presence that is the one presence, coming to the self, being the awareness. Wherever you are in your unique unfolding, it's to come to the deepest knowing. And at the deepest knowing, there is a resonant aliveness. And resting in this resonant aliveness, there is a nectar that is light, is smoothness, is beauty. It's the sweet taste of yourself, the sweet taste of the being that you are. To be here as the openness, to be here as the moment, as the emptiness, not as the content, to be here as the vast openness, and to recognize the difference. Are you here as the content, or are you here as the emptiness? If you feel to be here as the content, just drop back to be the awareness that's aware of content. Be the vast openness. Be where the resonance is alive with knowing. Drop back, drop into yourself, drop into the profound presence of your own simple knowing. Just being, just being. When you come to this simplicity of being, where presence is just present, you come to the felt sense of deep sleep, but you are consciously awake. Right? It's exactly the same as a deep sleep, like a dreamless sleep. That you're not identified with the mind or body. You're just here. There's just now. There's just peace. Just the self being itself. But here can be consciously awake to yourself. Consciously awake to yourself, which is the difference between being consciously awake to yourself here and deep sleep. In deep sleep, you are the self, because mind has gone, story has gone, identification with body has gone, the me and mine has gone, right? You can just notice that, yeah, it's true. We're speaking of dreamless sleep. Of course, in dream, the dream state is similar to the waking state. But here, right, this is the lucid dreamer. You can be awake to yourself, here now, in the waking state, you can be awake, lucid dreaming. But instead of the lucid dreamer, you're the lucid, awake being, right? What you are as a lucid dreamer in the waking state is awake to your true nature, right? You're just here. You know the waking state is just another form of a dream, but you've seen through the illusion. You're not deluded in the separation and the identification. You see the divine Leela. So you can see that, and that will still bring reflections of the unresolved pieces, right? At times, sometimes it will seem pristine and sometimes it will seem a little murky. But you're awake to yourself. You know who you are. You're awake in this waking dream, right? So here we're clarifying what some of these words that get used mean. You're awake in the waking state. You're not in the waking state in illusion. You're not in the waking state actually asleep. Asleep could be what could be called ignorance, the Vedic term, of course. So you're awake, you're here, you're awake. You can see the divine Leela. But when you're resting as awareness, the awakeness, you're resting as awareness, and awareness is aware of everything. Awareness can use the sense perceptions, but it's not differentiating. Awareness is not fragmenting the world, according to me. Although there could be subtle vasanas that come that say, yes, I like coffee and not tea, right? It's a vasana, it's a preference. And yet it doesn't, you can step into it and fall back from it without losing your true nature, right? So this is where everything is working as one seamless whole. Concealment comes, you can get into a very sticky, identified situation, but the being that you are is never touched. It's just an overlay. It's just an overlay in the divine play. Can you stay awake? Can you stay awake, whatever's playing on the surface? Can you stay as the openness? Can you remain as the openness and not identify? This is the process of refinement. Sometimes there will be identification, and sometimes there will be the possibility of dispassion. It can depend upon the flavor of what is whistling through. Some things are more stirring for the nervous system. You see, it's unique, but it's wearing everything down. It's wrapping everything up. It's wrapping up my world. It's wrapping up my world so that you can be living God's dream, right? This is what we mean by God's dream, the divine Leela. You still know it's a dream, but it's God's dream. It's a pure dream. And it's moving to bring the deepest recognition of oneness. So we come to the recognition of that oneness, and then deep in the recognition of the oneness is the knowing of God, the knowing of the divinity. It's all conspiring. And this is why we speak of drinking the nectar. The nectar is what carries you, purifies, recalibrates you. Drinking the nectar, it's what intoxicates you to bring you to the next clear seeing. There's this incredible wisdom that is unfolding naturally inside. And it's just to bring the attention to the miracle that is happening inside the being that you are, regardless of what is happening on the surface of life. But let us say that the surface of life can and will attempt to pull you into separation. There can be all sorts of storylines that play in the collective. But this is where it is to say yes to yourself and to not take any position. As soon as you take any position, even if the me thinks it's the right position, self-righteousness creates separation. True righteousness is pure truth, and it has no position, holds no position, no opinion, no judgment, right? So it's just to be the awareness and watch how the play of, let's say, the world that's created out of mind can be such a compelling arena for entanglement and identification, to hold a position, to create strategies. But the only strategy you need, the only protection that is needed, is to know yourself. It's the great panacea, let's say. Is just to be awake in the dream. To be awake in the dream, live the awakeness of your true nature. And as you live this awakeness, your, let's say, the connection to your true nature, the connectedness to the field, to the knowing, then acts as a divine, flowing, let's just call it a flow of grace. So then the divine can use your form, can use the channels of your nervous system to get to the surface, right? The infinite and the point are one. The divine and the human expression are one. Just one, only one, right? And the more that you are living this openness, this truth, the pristine light can move freely, and can get to the surface. So you can, in your awakeness, be a living beacon, a silent beacon of the divine in service, living this truth, living as the light, living as love, living as the being that you are, ever present and shining. The greatest humility is to live this truth in the face of a play that could want to pull you in. The greatest humility is to live the divine light and not hold any position, to not take sides, to know that in truth there are no sides. There is only one, and you are that one. It is to stand alone in this truth. Stand alone, awake to your true nature as a flow of grace, as a beaming light of the divine reality, living the divine life right here on the surface. It can look like a crazy nightmare, but you can be living the divine life and can be completely untouched, completely untouched.